Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Dr. Felicia Houk, the owner of Shifting Tides Chiropractic in Menasha, Wisconsin. Dr. Felicia is a neurologically based chiropractor who specializes in pregnancy, infant and pediatric care, and educating her patients about how stress impacts the way our brains process and function. Her clinic is also a certified Perfect Storm pediatric office that helps children calm their brains and better process the world around them. When she's not serving patients in the office or hosting a local lunch and learn, you can find her traveling, enjoying the outdoors, staying active, and building a life rooted in self-sustainability. Help us welcome her to the podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back. We are excited to welcome Dr. Felicia back to the mic today. And if you didn't listen to our first episode, it was a great overview on chiropractic care, but also pain and how the nervous system actually works. I think a lot of people, when they're hearing about nervous system, I feel like so many professions now talk about nervous system regulation, which is probably a good thing, but chiropractic really is the master of it. And so hearing it directly from you is amazing. But I loved how you really broke down how does the nervous system actually work? Like take us back to high school biology, right? And so that was really great. But we're going to continue that conversation today, move a little bit away from the pain aspect and into immune health, because this is another epidemic in our country today of chronic disease when it comes to high blood pressure and diabetes and obesity and all that stuff. But also, we just feel like we're sick with colds all the time too. So what the heck is going on? So I think my first very basic question to you, Dr. Felicia, is what is making us so sick?
It's a great question. I'm just going to go back to the brain again because it's our major operating center. When it comes to the brain, it is literally what allows us to react to, handle, and respond to our environment. So when the brain is in that fight and flight mode, responding to the stressors of our day, the stressors of our lives, kind of that chronic stress that we've been talking about, if we're operating in I am being chased by a bear all day long, you can imagine that, again, the distribution of energy in our body is going towards survival in the next couple of seconds, okay? And so I'll break this down just real quick, and then I'll answer your question. But if you can imagine that there's a bear behind you, your body in its entirety is getting away, and that's all that matters. Whereas if you had at the very same time a bacteria that was attacking the body, which one would kill you first? Well, that bear will, because it'll get you in 3 seconds, right? Whereas the bacteria may take 3 to 5 days to actually kill you. So energy going to the immune system and immune system function actually gets diverted into running away. Okay, so that's a little bit of the mechanism there. But why we get sick is because, we've been operating for a long, long time with the germ theory, and it's one that's just not accurate, right? Where we think like the germ is the enemy, but we're really not talking about the environment or the host, right? And the reason why that bacteria or that virus or whatever it is taking hold, okay? So it's really more on us and less about the bug or the germ, because most of the germs that actually get us sick are ones that in our day-to-day are actually keeping us healthy and well. So it's not like the little bacteria has, a brain of its own and it's going, I'm going to kill you. It's not, because it's just living, and it's really supposed to have a mutual relationship with our body. But when we don't take care of our body, that's really when that bacteria or the virus is allowed to grow and kind of monopolize. And then that's when things start to.
I love that you are taking it back to personal responsibility. Like you're taking care of the environment, which is your body.
Yeah.
I just love that.
Yeah. Do you want me to keep going on that?
Sure.
A little bit?
Yeah.
So I love talking about stress because it really is the root cause of all human disease. Okay. Because what it does is it changes the way that our brain sees the world, right? It puts us into fight and flight mode. And when we're in fight and flight, if we get stuck there, it will change how every single organ system is operating. Okay. Because if I'm running away from a bear, my heart is beating faster, right? My blood pressure increases to get more blood flow and everything in our blood out to the muscles and tissues that are required to run. And we'll also have things happen like when we're under stress, if we're literally being chased by a bear, it'll change what's in our bloodstream. So it'll cause an increase in something that's called blood clotting factors. Okay. And all three of the things I just mentioned, unfortunately, can have like this perfect storm that leads to and contributes to heart disease, right? So if I'm stuck in a state of chronic stress where I just have one thing after another bothering me, my heart rate might not be like slamming through my chest, but if it's increased, let's say like 15 more beats every minute of every day, I've just created that much more demand on my heart. So it's going to wear out faster. That in combination with high blood pressure, in combination with things like blood clotting factors, which of course would make sense if we were actually being chased by a bear, right? Because if we get bit by the bear, blood clots would help us to survive. But there's no bears in modern world. And so those blood clots then wind up in places they shouldn't. Okay.
This is very interesting.
Yeah. So all of that contributes to heart disease, which is still our number one killer, and even though there's more awareness than there ever has been and all sorts of funding going into combating heart disease, we're really not talking about the root causes.
The root causes, that's what it's all about. Yeah.
So what you're saying is, even though we're not getting chased by a bear right now, a lot of us are living in a state of chronic stress, and it's therefore not allowing our body to have the immune function that it should optimally have to fight off the germs and things that are coming in. And so circle back to that taking personal responsibility piece, is the answer to simply decrease stress? And how do you do that?
Yeah.
That's the problem, right?
Yep. So fight and flight mode is something that was designed to be turned on about 3 to 5 times a week for humans, like in humanity. And really what they've been able to measure is that today in modern world, we have that triggered over 30 times in the first hour of our day. So it's a bombardment of stress. So when people try to say, oh, just get rid of the stressors, try and change your lifestyle, like remove the stress from your life, that's actually it's really not feasible.
No.
Can you remove some stressors? Absolutely. But can we get rid of all of them? No, because we are living in such a sort of unnatural way with like the age of technology and all this sort of stuff, that the real only answer is to upgrade and adapt your brain. It has the ability to learn, but it is still living back in this world where it sees every stressor as a bear, right? I'm running late. It's a bear. I ate cereal for breakfast. It's a bear. All these things are bears, right? And so it's a matter of literally upgrading and adapting the brain so that it understands that not everything we need to run away from, fight off, or hide from. and that's what we do. Yeah. That's what chiropractic.
Yeah. And obviously chiropractor is a huge help in that.
Like what other tools could people put in their toolbox outside? Because you, in our first episode, you did a great job explaining your technique and how that would support upgrading your brain. What other tools can people put in their toolbox to help them upgrade their brain?
I would say that what you tell your mind is important. So the power of positive thought and positive thinking.
Gratitude.
Yep. And even, it's anything that you tell yourself, even if you don't believe it in the moment, if you're telling yourself something good, your brain is hearing that. It hears everything that you say. And I would actually say that chunk is something that chiropractors commonly talk about and are commonly doing. So it's not like you walk into a clinic and it's like, oh, hi, how you doing? It's like, hey, tell me the best part of your day, right? Because we're always trying to spin the narrative, because what we're telling our brain allows our brain to heal. It allows it to handle the stressors. It allows us to cling on to the good things, because our brain is actually wired for survival. So it's going to remember the negative. It's going to remember the bad, because that's what keeps us alive as a species. But we have, I would say, outgrown needing to survive in like the basics, the basic living concepts. Yeah. And so it's really not about survival anymore. It's about thrival, like thriving, and how we get there.
What would you say about kids? Because they have stresses in their lives. Like their bodies are growing. They may have some bullying. There can be stresses in kids' lives, but they also don't have bills to pay and schedules to maintain as much as adults do, and all these other big ticket stressors that adults have. But yet, and kids may not have cancer often or diabetes often, and some do, but they're sick a lot. So how does this relate to kids? The stress versus immunity aspect.
So as much as we want to say that kids don't have the same stressors as us, they're not the same, but they have just as many. And they're having them during a very, very crucial part of their lives, which is when they're supposed to be growing, learning, and developing. So if their bodies are stuck in fight and flight, just like ours, and they're trying to grow, develop, and learn, well, guess what happens? Right now, we have all the struggle in the schools. And so that's exactly what's happening, because they're stuck in fight and flight mode. And remember, it's physical, it's chemical, it's emotional stressors, and it does matter how early those things are onset. Okay, so it goes all the way back to how stressed is mom during pregnancy? How did the birth process go? Was there major trauma during the birth process? Because what happens then is it literally puts baby into fight and flight mode immediately. It doesn't allow them to grow, develop, or learn at all from the get-go. When it comes to the immune system, it's important to realize that there's a lot of organs that are involved in immunity. But again, it kind of breaks down or goes down to that energy distribution again. If our body is putting all of the energy into our muscles and to like run away and fight, it's not going to one of the most important immune system organs, which is our skin. So like blood flow is actually diverted from the skin to things like the muscles. And if you don't have, some of your biggest immune system organs operating, we get sick. There's also maybe an unpopular thought theory out there as well that says, hey, kids, we have an immune system organ. It's called your thymus. And in adults, your thymus is really, really small. But in kids, it's humongous. And that's because it's actually designed to learn. So it's literally like when we get sick, it's what develops and creates like the memory white blood cells that allow for us to learn, so that as adults, we're not getting sick from those same things. So I know it's an unpopular thought theory. We want our kids healthy. Are our kids sicker than they have been? Yes, and I think that has to do with the stress side of it, but also understanding that some sickness is actually good to challenge the body and have that learning. If we never got sick, that also wouldn't be a good sign.
Well, that's why we want our kids out in the dirt, right?
Yeah.
We want them to get that resilience. And I did not know about the thymus. That I did not know. That's very interesting.
I've never heard of that.
No.
Yeah. Learning something new.
Yeah, I am. I'm learning a lot in here today. Mm-hmm.
Staying on the topic of stress, is there a difference between good stress and bad stress? And maybe with good stress, you could think about like an athlete is having to sprint, and there's intention behind that, right? And it is kind of that fight or flight mode for a brief moment, but then, and then they do say it's a professional football player and they're doing that all the time right now. That's good stress technically, but it is still stress. Yeah. So break that down.
Yeah. So I would say that technically any stress is bad or harmful to the body, but it's our ability to be able to turn it on and off. That's the most important, right? Because there are times that, when we're working out, we need our heart, racing. We need our lungs working harder. We need our muscles pumping. But it's our ability to turn the fight and flight off when we are done. That's going to be most important. And you can even say that, there's a lot of people, and I know there's commonplace stories of people that, like, let's say are running a marathon and they drop dead and have a heart attack, right? These kinds of things. And it's saying, well, that person actually on the outside looked physically fit, but chances are that they weren't actually focused on recovery, healing, rest during their off times.
Well, and when you talk about professional athletes, it's really easy for me in my head to think of like an Olympic sprinter, right? They have to work really hard to be at the level they're at, their training days, but they're also really, really good at their rest and recovery too. So, and that looks like meditation, that looks like a lot of sleep, that looks like, foam rolling and all these other things that, people don't really think about or take time for themselves. So, I mean, even if we're not professional athletes, but what if we treat ourselves in a way that's kind of that way where, you work hard, you exercise, you eat well, you treat your body really well, but you also make sure that rest and recovery is there too.
I was going to say professional athletes have a team, right? That are like, now you do your ice bath. Now you have your massage. Now you get your chiropractic adjustment. Like it's part of their routine. So all of you out there who have been skipping or stretching after workouts.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much
encouragement.
Well, and when you talk about a team, I mean, that's what the Motherhood Alliance is all about too, is helping you connect with a team that is and willing help. They want to help. There's all sorts of people out there that can support you. And, maybe not every single person on the directory is what you need, but it is an option. And it's something that you can use for your recovery, for your rest, for your parasympathetic, your peaceful state of nervous system.
Mm-hmm. And before we close out this episode, I want to make sure we talk a little bit about autoimmune diseases, because I think this is also something that's talked a lot about in health and wellness right now. So how do autoimmune diseases relate to the conversation we've been having?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll kind of go back to that same concept of when we have stress, it changes the energy distribution of the body. I'm going to get a little bit sciencey here, but I think that you guys will be able to follow. So if you can imagine, there are really simple and really complex cells in the body. Okay. If our body doesn't have tons of energy to replace a cell, what it might do is it'll say, hey, we'll put a placeholder cell in that place instead, and then we'll repair it when we have the proper energy to make the more complex cell. Does that part make sense?
Interesting. Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is we never get out of the fight and flight and we stay stuck. So we're never replenishing the energy. And so we wind up with a bunch of cells that are operating maybe at like 30% of their function. And they're these very like simple cells that aren't really doing what they're supposed to. Or they're like repaired cells with duct tape as opposed to, a brand new road or something like that. And so all of a sudden the brain gets hold of this and the immune system gets hold of this, and they're like, oh, there's a bunch of these weird cells that aren't doing what they're supposed to do. And the body will break them down. right? And kind of that's that idea of it attacking itself. Well, it's not attacking itself. It's breaking down cells that aren't actually working and doing the things they're supposed to. And so that's autoimmune. And how does that translate into cancers? Is the same concept, or very, very similar concept, is that the body wants to repair or replace a bad cell, but doesn't have the energy to do it. And so what it's doing instead is it's putting, thousands, hundreds of thousands of these very simple cells to try to do the work. And there we have a tumor, right? And so all of those concepts, it's not like the disease of cancer is like this really complicated, like, oh, how is this happening? It's all about the energy distribution and how much you have available. And that's why, you'll hear of people that say, I changed my diet, or I juiced and I just put tons and tons of good nutrients in my body, and I rested and I did all these things, and I beat the cancer, right? Yeah. I overcame the cancer. And so that's kind of the difference between, like, if we go the chemo route or radiation route, we're killing all those really simple cells, but we didn't give the body more energy to replace them. And so what's the body going to do? It's going to continue to build those simple cells. But now we have chemical stress, we have even less energy, and that's when we metastasize. So, I mean,
that is,
you open a can of worms.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I feel like we could have another episode just talking about that topic in itself. I mean, that's super interesting.
Yeah, you could even just go through the different types of autoimmune diseases, but ultimately it all does come down to the same pieces, right? It's the stress aspect, it's the nervous system function aspect. It's probably also the nutrition aspect. What are you putting into your body? Because whatever you're consuming is what your body has as materials to build the cells, right? So it's all just connected. This is a really great episode. You are so awesome at educating people. And I understand now why you do so many lunch and learn workshops around our area. So actually, I would love for you to share a little bit about the workshops that you do. Who do you do those for? Do you have specific topics you like to educate on? Share more about that.
Mm-hmm. So something that we find super fun to do is go into different area businesses, and they can be small, a couple people. They can be corporate, and they can be 50, 100, couple hundred people. And what we do is we just educate about stress, kind of that elephant in the room, and what it's doing and why it's making life so difficult and hard. We typically bring lunch or breakfast. It makes it kind of fun and exciting. And we talk for about 10, 15 minutes, and it's a free it's a free thing. And of course, we give the opportunity to take action and do something about your health. I do want to mention, if people are interested in that concept, you can always reach out on our website, which is just shiftingtideschiropractic.com. And we're happy to set those up with you. But I also want to mention that we have a pain laser that we use in our office. And it's something that helps to literally give cells more energy. So light gives cells more energy. Okay. And so if you are someone that's struggling with immune system, autoimmune, cancer, these sorts of issues, it's an energy problem. How do we give the body massive amounts of energy very, very quickly? Light is the answer. And so that's something that we love and love seeing pretty immediate changes. Those sessions are about 10 minutes, and it can drop people's pain from an 8 to a 0. So it's incredible stuff. It's not really being talked about in mainstream medicine, but
it's another awesome tool in the toolbox.
Exactly.
Yeah. What is that called? Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, is she talking about a PEMF type thing? Or what type of technology?
Laser.
Okay.
So it's laser, which is just a light therapy. So if you guys are familiar with wavelengths of light, we have red light, and we have infrared, and we have ultraviolet. We have, all these sorts of types of wavelengths. So lasers are incorporating red, blue, purple, yellow light at a very concentrated, very powerful amount, if you will. Similar to how we know that the sun gives the earth the energy to grow and live, and without it we'd be in trouble. Well, the less we live in the sun, the more we're understanding the benefits of light and how to like harness that.
There's another whole episode we could do.
Yeah, we got 10 episodes coming at you.
Right, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing in this episode. I think it was, I feel like I learned so many things. You touched on so many small topics where I was like, well, what? I've never heard of that perspective, which is awesome. Dr. Felicia also did write a blog called Back to School Season, Stress, Immune Health, and Mom Life Balance. And you don't need to be a mom to read it, because I'm sure you will find so many interesting things in there that you can apply to yourself, whether you have kids or not. And we are in back to school season. So I think that's super, super helpful. As well as Dr. Felicia is offering an awesome deal for listeners where you can have your initial consult for just $30. Thank you so much for offering that.
Yeah.
If someone wants to take advantage of that, what's the best way?
I would say you can go on our website and just click schedule a visit, and you just submit your information, and it goes right to our ladies at the front desk. They'll reach out and call.
Awesome. And we'll link to all your website and your social media and all that in the show notes. And for those of you listening, we do have 2 awesome episodes left. We're going to be diving a little bit more into topic specific, or population specific, I should say. Next episode is going to be about pregnancy. And then our final episode is going to be about those kiddos. So stay tuned for those ones coming up next. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review, or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.